All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about the Buffalo Bills. We just talked about the Dolphins for a little bit. Now we're going to talk about another team in the AFC East, the Dolphins. Some comments made by Dion Dawkins on Josh Allen and his leadership. Josh Allen being more vocal this offseason, according to Dion Dawkins. Um, so he was on the herd uh, last Wednesday, and he said Allen has barked a bit more than in past years. He said Josh is one of those guys that will do what it takes at that moment. He's definitely a barker when that time comes. I've actually seen the bark a lot more this OTAs where he's been very, very verbal because our team is different. It's different. We got some young dudes that when they come in, they see a little bit of success and they can change. So Josh is doing exactly what he should. And they've gone through some changes. I mean, you also drafted a receiver. You drafted Keon Coleman. They're expecting big things out of him. They signed Curtis Samuel, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Chase Claypool, Mac Hollins. You also got Khalil Shakir there as well, who I think could have a good year for them. You got the two tight ends in Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. And you got James Cook coming out of the backfield. So, yeah, there is a lot of changes. There's no more Stefon Diggs, no more Gabe Davis. And then on defense, you got Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, and Tre'Davious White all gone as well. So, yeah, the Bills are going to look a little different. I know there's some people that think they're going to completely fall off, but again, I feel like it'll have some impact. Also, their center, Mitch Morse, he left. He's on Jacksonville now, to help protect Trevor Lawrence. So, yeah, things are going to be a little different. But that doesn't mean that the Bills are just going to fall off. Now, I do think it's interesting what Dion Dawkins said, that Josh Allen is, as he said, barking a little more. And I do understand from that angle that, yeah, you got a lot of new guys, in this offense that you got to try to get up to speed. Try to get on the same page with them, whether it's young guys or veterans. You want to make sure you're all on the same page. So when you get to the season, it's not like, everybody's going to be a deer in headlights and doesn't know what to do. Even though there might be a little bit of that because, not everybody doesn't play during the preseason. And I know there's talk about how, yeah, we keep eliminating preseason games, but I know, from some of the sports shows I watch, they talked about how, well, you keep eliminating preseason games and, the starters don't play. Well, then they got to get back up to speed when the games actually start, when the regular season starts, and they're playing sloppy football. And then, once we get, more towards the middle part of the season, that's when a lot of these teams are crisp and, they're playing their best football, if that made sense. But yeah, I understand that. I mean, again, I don't like the preseason, but you do understand that. Yeah, I mean, you got to play a little bit in the preseason. You guys got to play a little bit just so you get some practice in, you get some actual game action in, before you get to the real thing. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting year for the Bills. I think that's another thing to keep an eye on as well. Is just, for every team, there's things you can keep an eye on. But yeah, you got all these new receivers, and I think with Josh Allen, they're going to be fine. This is a team that will compete for a playoff spot, and I know they struggled last year. But I still look at Josh Allen as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and I think when you have him, you got a chance. You're always going to have a chance. I'm curious to see what receivers step up and who kind of separates themselves from the pack. Like I said, they're expecting big things out of Keon Coleman. I thought Curtis Samuel was a nice signing, so I think he's going to have a big role. Shakir, like I said, I think will have a good year. But it's about the other guys, too, the Mac Collinses of the world, the Chase Claypools, the MVSs. Like, are those guys going to play a role? Chase Claypool, his career got off to a good start with the Steelers. He had that 3-touchdown game, against the Eagles back during the COVID season. Like, his rookie season was promising, but then it's just been, he's fallen off since then. And who knows what he's going to be like in Buffalo. Could even be cut. Who knows? Depending on how things go. between training camp and the preseason. But yeah, I mean, he was with the Bears, didn't really do much. Went to Miami, really didn't do anything. I think he did catch a touchdown, but I believe. But yeah, it's just he hasn't really had an impact. So you have him. MVS has made big plays over the course of his career, but drops have been a problem for him. But he made big plays when they mattered most. In the playoffs last year or this year with the Chiefs. In the Super Bowl, icing the game in the AFC Championship against the Ravens, caught that third down pass. So he does make big plays in big moments. It's just, got to work on being able to hold on to the football. So, yeah, and I think another thing too, they are going to lean on James Cook a lot, similar to last year. James Cook, when they went from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady, that's something that they ended up doing. And Josh Allen, there were times where he didn't have big games. James Cook, one of them was the Cowboys game. I mean, James Cook had that monster game. James Cook, this could be the year of James Cook in this Bills offense. And that's something that I, kind of criticized the Bills, even before doing this show, is just how they were kind of one-dimensional and how, it's just Josh Allen throwing the football, 40, 50 times, and they just really don't have a threat coming out of the backfield. They had Devin Singletary, they had Zach Moss, but yeah, I called them the Buffalo one-dimensionals. Now, again, it worked for them because, they made the playoffs a lot and they got to the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, but, you want to have a balanced attack. But then it kind of went the other way where, James Cook is running the football and they're not really throwing it. But if it's working, why do you stop it? But it wasn't like a complete 180 where they just – but like I said, there were some games like the Cowboys game where they'd run the football. But again, if it's working, why stop it? Like I just said. So, yeah, so James Cook I think could have a big year. But yeah, who from this receiving core is going to step up? I don't think this receiving core scares you right now. The guy that scares you is Josh Allen. And Josh Allen could take off and run with it. We saw that big run he had in the playoff game against the Steelers. It's going to be interesting. And again, only time will tell. So we'll see. But I think Josh Allen, he wants to prove to everybody that, hey, look, there's no more Stefon Diggs. That does not mean that I'm going to fall off and I'm going to revert back to how I was my rookie season. Because 2018, yeah, again, he was a rookie. But that wasn't the best rookie season. Now you don't have Brian Dable anymore as well. But, even with Stefon Diggs, the last couple of years, the turnovers have kind of gone up again. And, Brian Dable, they kind of did a good job at limiting the turnovers. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting year for Josh Allen. I think he wants to, again, I think he wants to go out there and prove that, hey, it doesn't matter. And I think he can. I think he can do that. But if the Bills, they fall flat this year, Sean McDermott's probably out. You went to the AFC Championship game in 2020, but you've gone backwards since then. Lost a couple of home playoff games. This is a big year. So there's pressure on him and this team to go out there and, maybe do it this year. But I don't think they will. But I think they can make the playoffs. But yeah, I'm not looking at them and saying, yep, that's a Super Bowl team. Got to go out and prove it. And I think a lot of people might say that their window closed. I think their best chance might have been a couple years ago. Losing to the Chiefs in the divisional round. Not this past year, but in the divisional round, that epic playoff game. I think that could have been their best shot. But that ended up not happening. 12 seconds, and, right, was it 12 seconds? Whatever it was, the Chiefs had all 3 timeouts. They got in the field goal range. Butker kicked the field goal, and the Chiefs got the ball. And they changed overtime rules in the playoffs, for the Bills, basically. So, yeah, I mean, look, I don't think the Bills are just going to fall off and not be a good team this year, but, it's a big year. So, we'll see. I talked about the Dolphins and how they got to go out there and win a playoff game. Well, Bills are another team. Got to go out, but they got to go further, Because since the AFC Championship game loss to the Chiefs, they have gone backwards. And 3 out of the 4 years, they've lost to the Chiefs. Divisional round twice, championship game once. And then they lost to the Bengals, too, in between all that. A home playoff game. They've lost back-to-back home playoff games to end their season. Against the Bengals and against the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff start. So we'll see what happens, but I'm curious to see how it goes. It's something to keep an eye on with this receiving core. Again, I think the tight ends are going to be good. James Cook could be the year of him as well. But with Josh Allen, you're going to have a fighting chance. But let me know what you guys think. How do you see the Bills performing in 2024? What kind of season do you think Josh Allen's going to have? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we'll talk about Baker Mayfield. We'll talk about some of his interesting comments that he made recently and just kind of talk about him to end off the show here for the day. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.